world was young, the mountains green, no stain yet on the moon was seen.
Then with a crash came a great ringing shout. Ra, Ra.
3 rings for the elven kings under the sky, 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone, 9 for mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the dark lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 1 ring to rule them all, 1 ring to find them, 1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie.
Yeah, you goddamn right. It's talking about Tolkien. Ben! First, I just need to say...
Oh, God.
Fuck daylight savings time. Whoever came up with that, I hate them. Stupid idea. You're stupid. Almost as stupid as that old bastard Chuck Schumer. Anyway, Ben, let's talk about Tolkien now. Because we're not here to talk about that old bastard Chuck Schumer. We're here to talk about Tolkien.
People sometimes complain about the cursing, so I try to keep it down, but I know when you just decide to open an episode with a rant that it's another time that has sailed. So yeah, it is talking about Tolkien, Nate, and we are talking about the Bridge of Khazad-dum.
The Bridge of Khazad-dum.
Khazad-dum.
A significantly shorter chapter than the previous, 2 or 3.
Yes, yeah, we're kind of back on track. I'm hoping we could get out of here in under 90 minutes. That's the new goal.
Such luck.
That's the new goal. Let's see if we could do it.
All right. So last time we were hanging out in Moria. Pretty cool place. Nothing weird or out of the ordinary. And then we found a tomb. You remember Balin?
Son of Fundin?
Yes.
Then yes.
Son of Funyun. Yep. So we found his tomb. So it turns out he didn't just forget to write us back. You know, he's
he hadn't
dead.
grown tired of winning.
He hadn't grown tired of winning, which is what the Democrats hope the Republicans will do.
I shouldn't tee you up. I shouldn't. I do it to myself.
If we just keep handing them victories, they'll get tired of it. No, Balin's a little smarter than Chuck Schumer, but unfortunately, he got by some orcs. So
he actually got by one orc. So there's a sacred lake to the dwarves, the Mirror Mere. And it's spelled like mirror, like the looking glass, and then mere, like the watery area, the Mirror Mere. And he was there pondering, perhaps doing a little ancestor worship. And he got shot in the back.
That is a violation of the Geneva Convention to attack a religious site. And I am going to report these orcs to an international committee so that we can look into whether or not that orc needs to stand trial for crimes against not humanity, dwarfmanity, dwarfinity?
Dwarf kind. Or dwarves.
And if found guilty, he's going to spend the rest of his life in jail until his sentence is commuted. So, we're hoping for at least 4 or 5 years.
Well, it's better than you were going to get from the gods themselves. So this is...
Because your fake dwarf gods don't exist. I assume they just worship the same gods.
I do believe the dwarves have a kind of ancestor worship. And I don't know...
What has Thorin Oakenshield ever done for you, other than almost get you killed repeatedly?
I think they worship like the fathers of dwarves. I could be wrong about worship. Don't quote me on that. I wasn't prepared to talk about that today. But...
it's like in Coco.
I don't know what that means.
Wait, is that what it's called? What's the Disney thing with
It could well be. I haven't watched a Disney movie. You were there for my Lorcana rant, right?
It is Coco, yeah. They need to worship their ancestors on the Day of the Dead so that they don't fade away from existence forever.
Yeah, but they definitely would. Oh my gosh, why am I blanking on his name? Ale. They definitely would probably worship Ale.
Is he the
As their
guy who
patron.
built them and then
Yeah.
threatened to murder them at the insistence of God? And then they're like, oh, he didn't murder us, so I guess he's cool.
Hey,
I didn't ask to be born, Dad. Okay?
that
I was doing just fine as non-sentient, non-thinking rock or whatever you made me out of. And then you decided to breathe not life into me, but like you made me a little like wind-up toy or some shit.
to be
Fuck
fair,
you, Dad.
Tolkien kind of took that story directly from the Bible, so
Yeah.
don't want to get too into the logic of it. But this is where they find the book. They find the book that is in the
scimitars.
movies. Some orc scimitars. This is we
Diary.
cannot get out. We cannot
Drums
get
in
out.
the dark. They're coming.
But
this is when they talk about how Balin was the Lord of Moria for a solid 5 years. One more year than Joe Biden got. And they found Mithril, and then orcs started killing them. And they're like, oh, Oin, we need you to save the day. Go to the West Gate and see if you can find a way out. And hopefully there's not some sort of weird tentacle monster over there, because otherwise, oh boy, we're fucked. Unfortunately, there was in fact a tentacle monster over there, and they were fucked.
And I owe you an apology. Because you were correct. I can't remember if I edited this out or not because I wasn't sure about it. But you pointed out that the water level was higher.
Yeah, I did.
When Owen went through, and it was, and I was like, how could they have known that though? And they actually wrote it in the book.
Aha.
The water was up to the door, and somebody comments that it was a good thing they'd receded when we got here. So yes, that is a point for Nate, a lore point.
Yeah.
I did not remember that. There is one nerdy detail I wanted to point out is just another sort of shot at the elf dwarf hatred in the Peter Jackson movies. They go to great length to say there are several pages of the same sort, rather hastily written. I can make out little of them. Wait. Here is something. A large bold hand using an elvish script. That would be Ori's hand, said Gimli. He could write well and speedily, and often used the elvish characters. So dwarves write in runes. Their language has its own script, and it is runes.
It's a shame that they won't even teach Gandalf. Like, maybe he could get just a little bit of that. You know, maybe they could teach him just a little bit. He's been around for a long time, and he's been helping him out a lot. He couldn't just a little bit. Just a little bit.
He's been helping him out a little. But yeah, so if you look at the dwarven runes, they look like Norse runes. They're that blocky, like probably like 3 strokes per letter thing. And Tolkien goes out of his way to say that Ori chose to use the elven script to write dwarvish because it was faster when he had to like take dictation, because the elven script is a cursive script. He wouldn't have to pick his pen up as many times.
Disgusting. The elves gave us cursive. They needed to go. Their time was up.
I write in cursive.
You need to go too. You're sailing east though. You don't get to go west.
There's my let me see. Here's my work notes.
Oh, see, I have a computer at all times. I just type.
I have a computer, but I don't. So I guess they've done studies on this, but I didn't do this because of the studies, but I remember things if I write them. Like if I write it, if I write it by hand, I'll never need to look at it again. But if I type it, it's just in one ear and out the other.
Sounds like a you problem.
It could be.
My brain is a steel trap.
Mine is not. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting to point out. So not only did he
Speaking of
not hate
always knowing
elves,
things. Oh, wait, sorry, go on. He hated elves because they were horrible creatures that did a thing centuries ago.
did Ori not hate elves, he chose to use their script because it was more efficient.
And really, he should be one to actually hate elves given his experience in Mirkwood.
I think Ori knew that in some ways they were at fault. And had Thorin
the elves were at fault. I agree. Yeah.
Had Thorin maybe proved any kind of diplomat whatsoever,
Hey,
maybe
we
they
don't
wouldn't
follow
be in that.
him for his high diplomacy skill. We
We
follow
sure
him
don't.
for his high. I was gonna
He
say
has the key.
Marshall, but there you go. He has the key in the name.
Yeah,
and that's why we follow him.
He's the only one of us with a last name. That's why we follow him.
So, what is an Uruk?
An Uruk. So yeah, I wanted to point that out. So we get to the scene that's in the movie where they're in this room. It's the Chamber of Records, I believe, and they hear the drumming. Orcs are coming. They're Gandalf pops his head out, shoots a light down the hall, and he sees a bunch of them. They fire a bunch of arrows, and he pops his head back in, and he's like, what does he say? There are orcs, many of them, and some are large and evil, black uruks of Mordor. Now, I don't think that actually means that they had black skin. I think that might just be a way of saying, like, evil. I don't think it would occur to Tolkien to talk about skin color by saying black, but I could be wrong about that. And he also says, for the moment they are hanging back, but there is something else. A great cave troll. I think more than one.
Yeah.
And that's the line they give to Boromir. No, they have a cave troll.
They have a cave troll.
In the book, they fight off a horde of... So there's two exits to this room. The door they came in through that is barred, and then there's a door that also goes down a staircase. Aragorn doesn't want to go down the staircase without, and like just leave it, because they'll bust through this door in 5 seconds. Aragorn doesn't want to just leave them to follow and, give them the high ground as he's running down a staircase. So he's like, first, we're going to make them think we're committed to the defense. We're going to feint a defense, and then we're going to fall back, which, in true words about books fashion...
The first step is to locate the trap.
Yeah, I gotta say, as much as I love Tolkien, as much as I love the logic of this book, this is the one thing where I'm like, Aragorn, that works, but I don't know how you knew that would work. I don't know why you knew they would pause after one wave.
Yeah, they kill about 13 orcs, and Sam actually gets one. And the orcs, they fall back for a moment, and that's when Aragorn is like, aha, now we'll run away while they get reinforcements.
Yes, and it is an orc chieftain that spears Frodo. An orc chieftain almost man high.
So he spears Frodo, and Frodo is dead now. So
let me describe this real quick. So a huge orc chieftain, almost man high, clad in black mail from head to foot. He stabs Frodo, and they think Frodo's dead. That's we all know secretly he's wearing mithril. So this brings me to the topic of Uruks. And the inclusion of Uruks here is important because he specifically says Uruks of Mordor. So the experiment that we see Saruman do in the film, where they talk about, and later on Treebeard will speculate as to what these Uruks might actually be. Treebeard's, I think, specifically talking about Saruman's Urukai, but
the cooler ones.
Uruks are sort of the same thing. They're a little different, but Saruman was not
How long does an Uruk have to hang out in Moria before it's an Uruk of Moria? When can he call this his home?
The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind.
Saruman is not the first one to stumble on this idea that the orcs may need a little enhancement. So
Yeah, because they can't even stand sunlight.
yes, the sun in Tolkien's universe, this is worth mentioning one more time because it's been a minute, is a creation of the gods, and it shines with holy light, and creatures of evil really struggle to be out under bright sunlight.
And if we industrialize, we can keep a lot more of that sunlight on the planet in exchange for raising the temperature just a bit.
Yeah.
It's God's work. I'm going to go drive my car around for a little bit.
So these Uruks are the first attempts at enhancing the orc species. Like when they make a point of saying that the orc chieftain is almost man high, the average orc is not. So orcs, uruks, and urukai are slightly different. They're all
there's
orcs.
An evolutionary tree out there where they're slowly moving up.
The orcs are now the
Silmarillion. It goes goblin, and then it goes orc, and then uruk, and then urukai, and then like what's the next evolution? None, because they're all dead, Ben.
That's how D&D has treated it over the years, but
are there Orogs in this, or are Orogs the non-trademark version of Uruks?
I think those are probably some kind of hybrid between ogre and Etten, which is getting into Norse stuff, and we're not going to go there.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, orcs, we've talked about this before, but it's worth mentioning again, like the sun. Orcs, Tolkien never really decided what they were. He had a couple of challenges.
Peter Jackson did.
Not really. Peter Jackson wants to have it both ways. In the dialogue of the movies, he says that Saruman has he's crossbred orcs with men, which would imply sexual reproduction. But when we see the Urukai being made, they're like being hatched out of the mud.
He crossbred them, as in like he took some genetic material, like a finger or a toe, and then he took some orcs and then he just mashed them together and he put them in the ground.
Tolkien was clear on one point. Orcs reproduce sexually.
Ew.
They have families. There are baby orcs. There are female orcs.
It's going to get real awkward when this war is over.
It is going to get a little awkward when this war is over. We're going to talk about that. Check out our bonus episode on Frieren. The thing he had in mind, though, is that somehow the orcs were created by Morgoth. I think the first version of the mythology, they're just created whole cloth from Morgoth. But then Tolkien didn't want to make Morgoth that powerful, because Morgoth is supposed to be a fallen angel. And the ability to create sentient life with souls and stuff, that should be...
Hence, they don't have souls. And it's
It's not that simple, because even the creatures like Ents that may be of questionable soul, God still gives his okay to that.
Yeah, but God gives his okay to a lot of things because it's just all part of his plan.
He does, but not orcs.
What? So he doesn't give his okay to orcs, but like, I'm not going to do anything about it. Oh my God, is God Chuck Schumer?
So this is the challenge. God, Eru Ilúvatar is not Chuck Schumer.
It has to be stated.
Tolkien is careful. He does not want a religious system where there is a good god and an evil god. There is one god, and the power lies with him. And Morgoth is a fallen angel who can only corrupt and twist what God has created. And so the Silmarillion settles on an alternative Tolkien was thinking about, and that is that orcs are corrupted elves. So the first orcs.
So I get to kill both an orc and an elf with everyone that I fell.
This is where the challenge arises.
Is
Because
it Christmas already?
as far as I know, orcs are not immortal.
Ooh, so
They-
he fucked up when he corrupted them and...
Well, I don't know what the fate of an orc soul is, but I do think, according to the Silmarillion, an orc has a soul. If it is descended from a corrupted elf, then it is a child of Iluvatar. It does have a soul.
Oh, man. So
But it
they're
is
gonna,
important to
they're gonna
note.
cross the sea and a bunch of orcs are gonna be there.
It is important to note Tolkien did not finalize that before he died. This is just Christopher Tolkien's best guess. So that's where we're at. The original orcs of Morgoth were, at the very least, whatever they were corrupted, broken creatures. And they're small. They're lesser than the thing they came from. Sauron is trying to strengthen them. He creates Uruks. Now, the Uruks still have the weakness to sunlight, I believe, but they are much more human shaped. Tolkien in this entire series will never really do a good job of physically describing what an elf looks like or is.
Hot.
He'll describe them as beautiful, but
No, hot.
do they just look like people? Do they have
Yes.
pointed ears? We don't know.
Yes.
I get the vibe that elves, he's portraying humans to be bigger, stockier, more well-muscled.
With hair on their chests. A
Well, yeah,
man's man.
We're kind of tougher, though
Yeah,
elves
we
are still all like every bit as physically strong. And that could be due to like their innate magic or something, but
yeah, that's because they're cheating. I bet I could beat them in an arm wrestling contest.
I think the logic here we're supposed to take is that, or at least what was maybe in Tolkien's mind, is that maybe there is some kind of crossbreeding. Maybe he is pairing orcs with men to create Uruks.
Oh, not nice.
But if that is the case, regardless, Uruks are larger, stronger, smarter. And these are Uruks of Mordor.
Yeah.
These, I believe in saying that. This is a headcanon thing. You could argue it. You could argue that Gandalf just meant they were created in Mordor and found their way here.
That is not what I took.
I take it to mean they are emissaries of Mordor.
Yes, I took it that they were sent here
Absolutely
by Sauron intentionally.
Yes. So when I told you back when they were at the Council of Elrond and Gloin was talking about the offer Sauron made to them that they could have Moria back, these Uruks have seen and probably treated with the Balrog. I do think Sauron maybe was offering, I'll withdraw my forces, including perhaps a Balrog, from Moria.
That Balrog being taken away, that has to be on the table. We're not going into Moria if that Balrog is still there.
No, you see, because if we don't pass the resolution, then Doge has more power. And sorry, this is not evergreen content. We're really rooted in the time we're recording, but sometimes you just got to take the Balrog.
Hold on, let me put my glasses a little further down on my nose while I talk now.
Yeah.
Anyone listening in the future, is he gone yet? I'm talking about Chuck Schumer. Is he gone yet?
Well, he's gonna. I mean, eventually, he's just gonna crumble into dust. But anyway, so yes, that's the other important thing I wanted to note is Sauron's forces are here. He has this mind. He is watching everything they do. Sauron is the major threat of
Not
this book.
Saruman, who I think you said is never mentioned again until towards the very end of the book.
So they take out all these orcs. Aragorn, they retreat back through the door to, like, I guess, prepare their forces, which Aragorn knew would happen somehow.
Because he's
Aragorn,
an expert ranger, he knows his enemy bend. They're his what is it called? His mortal enemy, where you get an advantage on stuff against
yeah,
them. So he picks up Frodo, and Frodo's like starts stirring and like talking, and he's like, "Oh, thought you were dead." And then
do you think Frodo had at least a minute where he was like, "And you picked me up. You didn't have to." Aw, you care, Strider. You care a little.
And unlike in the movie, Gandalf is like, "All right, now is not the time to show off Frodo's cool ass armor. We gotta run."
Well, Frodo is still not showing. Like, he does not lift his shirt and show them his mithril. He's like, no, because there's actually a scene. Let me see.
because the mithril could buy the Shire several times over. I'm not showing anyone I have this. You'll steal it.
So let's talk about a few acts here. So Frodo stabs the cave troll in the foot with Sting. Boromir is like literally breaking his sword on the cave troll, and Frodo runs up with his blade from Gondolin, stabs it, and
And this cave troll's not named Bill.
no. And Aragorn shouts, "One for the Shire, the hobbit's bite is deep. You have a good blade, Frodo, son of Drogo." So he's finally talking to him like he's a proper, like, you're a good old Norse warrior. You're not one of these pampered little hobbits anymore. You've drawn blood, Frodo Baggins. So let me see.
Gandalf's going to hold the door unless you're going to talk about something else that happened.
No, there was one other thing I wanted to say because it made me laugh and I didn't remember it. So Frodo, I'm all right, gasped Frodo. I can walk. Put me down. Aragorn nearly dropped him in his amazement. I thought you were dead. And yeah, Gandalf's like, yeah, okay, don't worry about it. And Aragorn says, I can only say that hobbits are made of stuff so tough I have never met the like of it. Had I known, I would have spoken softer at the inn in Bree. That spear thrust would have skewered a wild boar. Aragorn's like legit like, what the fuck just happened? He literally, like, there's a part of Aragorn that thinks that this hobbit just tanked a spear.
Yes.
Can they all do that?
It
should we be wielding them as shields?
Exactly. That spear should have gone in one end and out the other, and you're talking like nothing happened.
Yep. But yeah, now you can go on to the door.
So Gandalf is like, "You guys run. I've got the door." And then
moments later, Gandalf is blown down the stairs. I don't got the door. I don't got the door.
Yeah. And they're like, he's like stunned, like, I have no goddamn idea what I just saw. No, like, whatever that was, we don't want none of it. So we gotta go.
Let me read this one to you as well, because this is one of the most hotly debated amongst, like, Lord of the Rings magic lore nerds.
Oh God,
passages.
That sounds awful.
He was trying to cast a spell to seal the door, and they ask him what went wrong, because what happens is he's up there, he's saying some stuff, he's muttering some stuff. There's a little, like, almost like weird back and forth going on, and then all of a sudden the whole thing just explodes and the ceiling caves in. Yep. And that kind of seals the door, I guess.
Hey, he did the job.
So they ask him what happened, and Gandalf replies, "As I stood there, I could hear orc voices on the other side. At any moment I thought it would burst open. I could not hear what was said. They seemed to be talking in their own hideous language. All I caught was the word gosh. That is fire. Then something came into the chamber. I felt it through the door. and the orcs themselves were afraid and fell silent. It laid hold of the iron ring, and then it perceived me and my spell. What it was, I cannot guess, but I have never felt such a challenge before. The counterspell was terrible. It nearly broke me. For an instant, the door left my control and began to open. I had to speak a word of command, capital C. That proved too great a strain. The door burst into pieces. Something dark as a cloud was blocking out all light inside, and I was thrown backwards down the stairs. So, here's some things we get from that. Now, obviously, this is the Balrog, but there's spells. There's counter spells. There's words of command. What does that
these
mean?
are all command is a level 2 spell, I believe, and
But you can't cast it on a door.
oh, yeah, that's right.
So this is where I say this is a chapter that's a huge debate in the community. What does any of that really mean? What does it mean
It
for
is
Gandalf?
beyond our understanding because we're not cool magicians, Ben.
I think there's some stuff in here we can glean. Just based... No, it's all vibes based. So this is going to be my headcanon. Don't run around picking lore fights about this. But Gandalf always uses the appropriate amount of magic to the situation. We've talked before about how using too much magic is kind of a no-no.
Yeah. You don't summon the Megazord until the monster grows.
Well, the thing is, the way magic works in Tolkien's universe is you literally give up a piece of yourself to do it. So if you spend it willy-nilly, you're just blowing your soul apart, and you're not, it becomes unsustainable. And so Gandalf he just does little tricks with fire. He does little unlocking spells, little locking spells.
Every time he does a little trick with fire, he's like, oh, my soul. Here's my firework. Oh!
A lot of the times he's just making a small fire bigger or moving a flame from here to there or appearing larger, though maybe he's not necessarily actually larger. It's all very tiny acts of magic relative to most fantasy.
It's those level 0 cantrips, the prestidigitation and thaumaturgy.
But here, he says he tried to use a word of command, which I think is where Gandalf is finally like, okay, whatever's on the other side of this, I've got to actually use the big boy magic. I am going to impose my will on reality. I'm using admin commands now. This door doesn't open.
Tilde. Door. Underscore. Close.
And whatever is resisting that, the door simply cannot handle this much magic being thrown at it, and the piece of reality that is the door flies apart. I believe that is what's happening here. Gandalf
I can see that.
You've got two angelic beings attempting to both rewrite a piece of reality, and it just crumbles.
The weakest part of this whole chain is the door. So that's where it falls apart.
Right. And so the other thing is, we're going to get into this as we get into the Balrog here, but you know how in the movie the Balrog shows up and it looks like a shadow minotaur?
It definitely looks like some sort of demon thing. That's a Diablo boss right there.
Yeah, and it just screams. That has led a lot of movie watchers, I think, to maybe think that the Balrog is stupid.
Yeah, it definitely comes off as like a monster and not like a Gandalf, but bad.
Yeah, but in this chapter, it very much is. It's using subtle magics. It's doing counter spells. It is, if Gandalf is wise and he knows all these spells, and we associate his Greybeard with all his magic knowledge, this Balrog's just as good at magic as Gandalf.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that Balrog needs a beard.
Maybe it has one.
A beard made of black flame. That's fucking metal.
That is actually pretty metal. That could be the case.
So also, unlike in the movie, they're running for like a mile and there aren't any pursuers at this point.
No, and they're also not running down crumbling staircases with no railings.
and being shot at from 50 yards away on adjacent catwalks. Yeah.
Over a pit of lava in a video game level.
So they run. Gandalf is pretty drained from the whole experience, just like I am from daylight savings time. So I'm like Gandalf. And they rest a moment, and this is when Gandalf talks about what happened to him, and they see light up ahead, but it's red light. Well, Gimli sees it. Gimli got those dwarf eyes. So it's fire, not daylight. And so I was a little confused. Did the orcs light a big, giant fire here to, like, trap them? But
Yes.
The group manages to get around it, so the fire does not trap them, and in fact, works against the orcs.
Because as you remember, Gandalf heard the orcs talking, and he heard one word, gosh, which is fire. And it's...
and he wasn't talking about the Balrog.
Yeah, before long, Gimli spoke. He had keen eyes in the dark. I think he said that there is a light ahead, but not daylight. It is red. What can it be? Gosh, muttered Gandalf.
Ah.
So that was the orcs' plan. They were going to light a fire to cut them off. So they're not running over. I don't even think it would have occurred to Tolkien that they could run over giant active volcano lava stuff. Tolkien probably...
because we couldn't even go over a fire.
Tolkien probably would have been like, but that would be too hot.
But wait, obviously he would. Can Gandalf make fires smaller?
In this case, the fire's doing them more favors.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they managed to get around it, and then the orcs are trapped on the other side of the fire.
Yeah, because I think the orcs don't entirely know where they're going. They've managed to get around the fire. The orcs are now trapped on the other side. And so I don't think Gandalf has any interest in making the fire smaller.
So now we're at last coming to the end of our journey in Moria. We come across the OSHA violation bridge of Khazad-dum.
But the bridge has a purpose.
Yeah, it's if you're going to invade Moria, you have to do it single file. And there's a chasm that goes on forever down below. Trolls put slabs over the fire, and then they all just back off. A great shadow comes before them. Legolas is the one who recognizes the Balrog. Boromir blows his horn, because, he's got the horn. He might as well use it.
It does make him hesitate. They did not know what that was about.
Yeah, and so Gandalf, he is going to prevent this Balrog from getting across this bridge, just like in the movie. And he's out there, and he says, "You shall not pass," instead of, he says you cannot pass. Yeah, I think the movie changing it "shall not pass." Solid. It's minor change. And then Gandalf is like, "Old Tom Bombadillo," and then the bridge just collapses, and as he's falling, he's like, "Make me sound cooler when you write this down," and he falls into the depths. No, he also talks about, okay, so what is the servant of the secret flame, the wielder of the fire of Anor, and the dark flame of Udûn?
Yeah, I was waiting because I had a few questions I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
Do you remember the description of the Balrog we get?
I just had it as a great shadow.
It was a great shadow, in the middle of which was a dark form, of man shape, maybe, yet greater. Power and terror seem to be in it and to go before it. The shadow stretches out like great wings. In its right hand was a blade like a stabbing tongue of fire. In its left it held a whip of many thongs. That probably was more threatening in old times.
And he breaks the sword. Gandalf does.
Yeah, the Balrog lashes out at him. Gandalf puts a spell on his sword, combined with the fact that Gandalf is wielding Glamdring, a sword from Gondolin that was made to fight the foes of Gondolin, which were the Balrogs and Morgoth. It shatters the Balrog's sword, and the Balrog tries to come at him with a whip. Gandalf breaks the bridge. He says the thing, and then the whip hits him like in the movie and pulls him down. So,
And he tells them, "Fly, you fools."
yes. So Gandalf says, I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder
flame.
of the flame.
Ah.
I'm going to read this again. You're going to listen.
No, I refuse.
I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Anor. You cannot pass. The dark fire will not avail you, flame of Udûn. Go back to the shadow. You cannot pass. I am a servant of the secret fire. By that, I assume he means God. He is telling the Balrog three things in this statement. First, I am a servant of the secret fire. I am an angel. I am a Maya, just like you. I wield the flame of Anor, which is, Anor means sun. The sun, as we said earlier, is a holy object.
Do Balrogs suffer under the sun?
Probably not, but what Gandalf is saying there is, I am a Maya, and now he has also said, and I wield the power of the Valar. That is the side I have chosen. He cannot pass. The dark fire will not avail him. Flame of Udûn. Udûn means hell. So Gandalf is saying, I'm a Maya. I'm an angel like you. I serve the light. You serve hell. The light will triumph over the dark. And then he breaks the bridge.
And he starts singing about Tom Bombadil. And unfortunately, he doesn't manage to finish the song before the whip grabs him.
Yep. And then it proceeds pretty much like the movies. They manage to run out. Fortunately for them, they don't emphasize this in the movie. Fortunately, they run out. They've been down here for days. They have no idea what time it is. Had it been night when they ran out,
We would be in trouble.
the orcs would have just followed them.
Yeah.
So they were hoping and praying that it would be daylight. And it is, fortunately, about noon, I think. And they are able to get away. But they did have orcs guarding the exit, which is something they did not have in the movie. And Aragorn runs. These orcs are guarding the exit. Aragorn just runs at him and just cuts. I think he cuts. It just as he smote to the ground the captain. Aragorn just finds the biggest, toughest guy there, murders him in front of his men,
Tail
and then,
rules.
and then they run. Yeah, Gandalf makes himself big and has a voice and all that to intimidate people. Aragorn just murders the biggest guy there. And that's how we're going to do it. So
yeah, and Aragorn is now the leader of this party because our last leader fell into a pit.
Probably the only other thing I really wanted to touch on here is the Balrog questions if it has wings. I have always heard definitively Balrogs do not have wings, but Peter Jackson gave them wings. Rereading the chapter again, he is described as having shadows, like able to extend his shadow as if it was as like wings, like a great wingspan. So I think the wings might actually be a kind of valid interpretation. And I was surprised because I've been militantly against wings, but I think that's just me being a pedantic nerd. I can totally see where people get it. The other thing is the Balrog is man-shaped, not minotaur-shaped, and he runs and leaps over the flames. So I think the Balrog is meant to look more like a Greek god, like wreathed in shadow and flame, than it is meant to look like a hideous skull minotaur. I don't hate the hideous skull minotaur interpretation, but I do think there's something much more intimidating.
Well, yeah, the again, it makes him seem more like a beast than
Yeah, I think there's something a lot more
minor god.
intimidating. But I do think they also nailed it. Like, that's how people think of demons sometimes too, and demons are obviously supposed to be fallen angels, and so, why would they be less sophisticated than like Michael or Gabriel? And so yeah, I think this one, it really emphasizes the angelic struggle. It's another power play by Sauron. And at this point in the book, if you're a reader, you don't know that there's not more of those.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know that there's not more of
Yeah.
those, actually.
Yeah. So I think it's a pretty effective chapter. After a lot of exposition, a lot of lore, I think it really renews the threat and makes it real. And obviously, it takes Gandalf out of the picture. So
Yeah,
they're
and
screwed.
if you want me to be a coal miner, you're going to have to pay me a lot more.
And let me look at my map here, but I think, this just brings them to the other side of the Misty Mountains.
Yes. A thing that Bilbo did in what, like 6 chapters?
Yeah. So again, they've made it maybe a little less than halfway. So, and they've already lost their most powerful guy. And like Boromir was struggling with the cave troll. Their whole mission relied on stealth, and the enemy has known where they were every step of the way.
Yeah, we got this.
We are being slowly picked off one by one.
Hey, you can't tell that from just one guy dying. I mean,
no, 2 guys would have to die.
Yeah, 2
to
guys
establish
have
a
to
pattern.
die to establish the pattern. Exactly. Once is coincidence. Twice.
Well, twice is coincidence.
Twice is coincidence.
Yeah.
Once is happenstance or something like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll be fine, Ben. In fact, the next 3 chapters we're going to just spend in one place.
Spooky Rivendell.
Yeah, all right. So we're gonna spend the next 3 chapters in Lorien, and then we're gonna go down a river past a place called the Brown Lands. Sounds like a great place to go. And I'm sure something victory.
What's the title of the last chapter?
Hold on. Let me just look this one up. I believe it is called The Fellowship Survives Forever, and they go on to win. The breaking of the Fellowship. They're taking a break.
They got Kit Kat bars.
Yeah.
It's a Sheets run.
There you go.
I think we did it. We did it in under 90 minutes.
The road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, and I must follow it, if I can, pursuing it with eager feet until it joins some larger way, on many paths and errands meet. And whither then, I cannot say.